Good morning, YouTube fans. This will be a pretty short video. If you saw one of our more recent ones, we talked about deadheading and doing some staking in the garden. And again, we continue to do that in the garden now. It's going to be a process. Luckily, I'm helped by my wife today. Maybe I can wrangle the kids in helping a little bit as well. That's one big difference having moved from New York State, where we grew about the same number of roses, about 42. They are much, much taller here. I think the biggest any of my bushes got were probably like this. This is Louise Estes, the maiden rose from April 2019. But these are more recent plants, and they're taller than I grew in New York. And those in the far garden, the more mature garden, is about twice the height of what we grew in New York. So when you have something that's twice as tall, you have twice as many blooms. I remember in New York, we would give away pretty much all our rose blooms to friends and neighbors. And we give away a lot here, but we just can't keep up with the sheer amount. And that's not a problem, but that certainly means more of a task with deadheading. You can see that the deadheading's gotten away from us here in the last couple weeks. The tallest rose bush right now is probably this one, Yolande de Aragon. It's an old garden rose. It's well over 8 feet tall. It primarily blooms in the springtime. It is known to have a second flush in the fall, but certainly not as much as we see in the spring. The point of this quick video is to update you on the deadheading, but show you a little trick. As I go around and stake the roses, on the last video, if you saw the silver cream, remember that was down on the garden bed, remove the blooms, and that definitely lightened the load on the cane itself, but still needed to be staked. So that's ahead and it's staked. And then the other one I showed you was Let Freedom Ring. That was down into the garden, and that's been staked now. One tip on staking, I mentioned that I like these green, they're the shape and size of bamboo, but they're plastic. I like those for staking because they're small, they don't take up a lot of room. But the tip I wanted to show you is when you go ahead and stake these, here's an example with Dolly Parton. This cane has come down. There's a natural bend to the roses and a shape to them, so you can actually use the stake to temporarily hold it up, and that will do two things. Number one, it allows you to tie it off so you don't need a second set of hands. But more importantly, if it's already being held naturally by the stake, it's going to tend to stay that way versus falling apart. And this is what I mean. Here's a long cane of Dolly Parton, and see how it has a Y shape at the end. So if you take this rose and if you put it a certain way, it just naturally leans against that stake. So right now I have zero tape on it. It's naturally being held up. If the wind came by and knocked it down, then yes, it would come down. But with the reinforcement of the green tape I showed you, it's more likely to stay up when it's in a natural position of being held up. So I'll still do the green tape, but the little tip is look for the Y in the roses and put the cane that needs to be staked resting against the stake. That gives it extra support. So that's it from the rose garden. I'll last leave you with a couple of newer blooms. Again, the blooms vary in terms of time. So while we're deadheading in the garden, I still have some of these coming along, and that's beautiful. That's Secret. It's a very fragrant rose, and unlike a lot of hybrid teas that are fragrant, it also has exhibition form with the spiral that you usually look for. The other one that's looking good in the garden right now, wish you could smell it because it smells better than it looks, is Mr. Lincoln. Well-growing rose, very, very decently disease resistant, has a tall upright growth habit as well. So that's it from the garden today. We'll finish deadheading, but I wanted to give you that tip on staking. Again, when you do your staking, try to naturally rest it on the stake for added support. Then when you tie it off, it's double supported. Hope everyone's doing well, and again, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Have a great day.